Anthropic released a new AI model for its product Claude this week. I like using Claude. It's really good at answering questions and helping me figure stuff out. So I wondered, this new model, it's supposed to be really good at coding. Maybe we could get Claude to write us a game. Oh, and that game should be on the Raspberry Pi, and we should make it so you have to use a controller to play it, not just the keyboard. Meet Drone Rush, a product of me and Claude. So I'm going to show you how I did it and how you can do it yourself.
So what are you going to need for this project? Well, pretty obviously, you're going to need a Raspberry Pi. You're also going to need an SD card for the Pi, so that way you can put an operating system on there. Because I want to make it a little more challenging, you're going to need a joystick, so that way you can play the game that you build with a joystick instead of the keyboard controls. I just feel like it makes it a little more interesting. Most importantly, you're going to need Claude or ChatGPT, but we're testing out this new feature on Claude, so let's go with that. So you've got all the important stuff, right? You got your Pi, you got your controller, you got your SD card, you got your... all right, we don't need that. We got to format this thing.
A few minutes later.
You've got everything all set on the Pi. Now you just need a game. You're going to need to tell Claude exactly what you're looking for in this game by writing something called a prompt, a bunch of text that explains what you need it to do. There were two things in that prompt that I used that I found extremely helpful. The first was deciding that I'm going to make this a web-based game. I don't write software, so maybe this isn't the perfect avenue to try, but this is what I saw other people do, and it worked for me. So web-based game it is. Second, I told Claude to put all the code in one file. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript, everything in the one file, so that way it's all centrally located. So here's the first prompt I used to try to get this game built. You don't have to write the prompt perfectly the first time. In fact, you're definitely not going to. You got your prompt, now what? It's time for your team. We're going to use personas. It's a concept where you tell the AI to take on the identity of some kind of expert or a different character. These personas are what's going to help us get our game from initially created to polished and way better. Once you have the first version of the game, you try running it and see what works or doesn't. Bring those corrections back into the AI, and you have the AI adopt one of those personas. So you start going back and forth with the AI to improve things. For example, software dev persona writes the first piece of software, and then you run it for the first time and you see it's not running very well on the Pi. So you initiate a new persona, a system on a chip engineer, get feedback from the engineer, and then you see that maybe the code's a little too complicated or it needs some new features. So you initiate a product manager persona, and that bats more ideas back to you. You keep batting the ideas back and forth, honing and improving the game until you got something that's pretty good. You could end up in this loop for weeks, but as I said, I wanted to knock this out in like a days-long period. So here's where I ended up. This is Drone Rush. It's a pretty simple game, but it does run on the Pi. It lets you control it with the joystick controller, and it even runs on my big screen TV, which I thought was kind of silly. The game is super duper simple. You're controlling the drone with a joystick, and you fly through the gates, and you go after power-ups. That's what those yellow dots are. The flight control was actually pretty smooth and really intuitive. Some of the other stuff still needs work, but for a start, for one day, I think it's pretty great. There you go. Brand new game for the Raspberry Pi, built in just about a day or two. Let me know what you're working on. Let me know if you think there's any ways I can improve on this project or any suggestions for projects that you have. Till next time, I'm Chandler.